Participation in the Third World Traditional Chinese Medicine Forum, Development Trends and Thinking of International TCM in the Late and Post-Pandemic Era by Professor Binjiang Wu, President of the Ontario College of Traditional Chinese Medicine. The outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic in Wuhan, China, happened in mid-January 2020, as the Chinese government adopted a decisive localized closure to isolate the source of infection. The mobile cabin hospital was established to treat mild and severe patients separately, and TCM participated on a large scale in the whole process as an anti-epidemic measure. It successfully reduced the epidemic's growth rate in China, and soon the epidemic situation in China was eased. This is the result after a struggle of blood, sweat, and tears. In the early stage of the COVID-19 pandemic, with no special drugs and vaccines, the diagnosis and treatment plan for COVID-19 using TCM and the integration of Chinese and Western medicine had become an important feature and advantage of the Chinese plan. TCM participates in anti-epidemic processes on a large scale by effectively relieving symptoms, reducing the development of mild and general types to serious, improving the healing rate, reducing the mortality rate, and boosting recovery. Now, the epidemic in China has been basically brought under control and has entered the late stage of the epidemic. Canada and other countries in the world are fighting for time to popularize vaccination as soon as possible, hoping to achieve the effective universal immunization. If no accidents occur, many countries will have an inflection point in the second half of 2021. The epidemic will be, however, the development of the world is uneven, and the time to enter the late stage of the epidemic depends on many factors, such as the economic strength, medical level, national government's capabilities, and politics of countries to purchase vaccines. It is predicted that some countries may extend to the second half of 2023 or 2024. However, the late and post-epidemic era has already become foreseeable. The epidemic has changed the way the world and people live, work, and study, and will also form inertia and impact on original methods before the epidemic. Research on the direction and trend of international Chinese medicine development in the late and post-epidemic era has been put on the agenda, and it's worthy of discussion and to think over carefully. 1. Rehabilitation intervention of TCM in the recovery period is the focus of international TCM clinical anti-epidemic in the late stage of the epidemic. Due to medical regulations overseas, TCM practitioners are not eligible to directly participate in the treatment of COVID-19. However, TCM rehabilitation intervention during the recovery period will be the focus of international TCM clinical anti-epidemic medicine in the later stages of the epidemic. The sequelae of recovery period accounts for about 20% of the total number of patients. This includes conditions such as post-viral fatigue, depression, pulmonary fibrosis, fibromyalgia, heart failure, loss of smell, loss of taste, infertility, and so on. Western medicine treatment is basically centered around treatment of initial symptoms, and the recovery of post-recovery period symptoms is not ideal. After the COVID-19 virus turns negative and the patient is discharged from hospital, TCM practitioners can legally carry out rehabilitation interventions during the recovery period. In addition to Chinese medicine, TCM combines strategies such as Chinese psychology, acupuncture, massage, cupping, qigong, tai chi, and so on, as well as the theoretical considerations such as differentiation and disease differentiation treatment, may add to the additional benefit of focusing on enhancing the immune system's resistance. 2. The epidemic has accelerated the development of internet toward high-tech online education and medical care. The epidemic in 2020 has forced everyone to work from home or take online courses. The epidemic accelerated the development of the internet, such as in the case of high-tech online education and online medical care. Recently, several academics and their teams have used the cloud lecture method to deliver successful COVID-19 academic lectures on TCM treatments to TCM practitioners around the world, which generally enhance the fighting spirit and confidence of overseas TCM practitioners. We've established the Canada Overseas Chinese TCM online consultation service to facilitate online consultation for international students and Chinese expats. Express mail can solve the need for medical supplies, and technological advancements have developed non-contact remote osculation and other equipment to assist online diagnosis. In my article, The Top 10 Trends and Strategic Thinking of the International Development of Traditional Chinese Medicine and Acupuncture in the 21st Century, published in 2015, I pointed out, with the further development of IT technology, the instant translation and conversion of different languages on the internet will become more mature and practical in a few years. TCM can be taught by teachers in different countries due to the improvement of image recognition, technology, and the development of portable medical equipment. Internet remote diagnosis and TCM treatment will gradually become a reality. This predicts that it will play a special role, especially in the TCM treatment for subhealth and longevity medicine. Different types of WeChat groups nowadays have achieved a certain degree of professional exchange. Cloud Lecture provides free time and space for continuing education. To take the network road and read the group books has become a high-level business practice for overseas TCM. These predictions have been accelerated in the epidemic situation. We believe that in the later part of the pandemic and the post-pandemic era, there will be a group of unicorns in the field of general health and a promising growth in the TCM industry at home and abroad. Part 3. The epidemic forces overseas TCM to transform from the agricultural era to the post-industrial era. Characteristics of the agricultural era are based on self-sufficiency and a self-management model. The characteristics of the industrial era is a large-scale production and collective mindset with a need to cooperate with each other. The rapid development and application of IT in the post-industrial 5G era have cut down the spatial distances between countries, and instant translation has solved the problem of language barriers. Extensive information sharing has become the norm in people's daily lives. Overseas TCM practitioners opened clinics with the three-finger diagnosis technique and lived a life of self-sufficiency in the agricultural era. The characteristics of this agricultural era made TCM practitioners more fragmented and independent of each other, which at the same time resulted in the lack of progressive mechanisms like discussing cases between peers in China. This sudden outbreak has forced everyone to learn to use post-industrial technologies such as online diagnosis and treatment, and directly bypasses the industrial era and goes from the agriculture to post-industrial era in the process of a paradigmatic leapfrog. Some people may not be able to keep up and will end up being eliminated from the market. If we master the use of the technology of the post-industrial era properly, it will make TCM stronger and allow it to go further. 4. It has become a trend that the proportion of theory courses in online teaching will increase exponentially. People are forced to work and study at home due to the epidemic, and online teaching has become the only choice for teachers and students. In the beginning, teachers and students were not very comfortable. After more than a year, both teachers and students have not only adapted, but have also tasted the sweetness of home-based online learning. Remote learning can solve a lot of time traveling to and from campus, especially in sparsely populated countries like Canada. This model will save people the inconvenience of daily transportation and its associated costs in fuel and parking. For more than a year of online teaching, a complete set of learning, supervision, and assessment techniques and methods have been established and perfected. All theoretical courses can be successfully implemented in online teaching. In the later stages of the epidemic, although students can return to school one after the other to participate in face-to-face instruction, for safety reasons, students will be arranged to return to the school in installments and batches. So some students still need to attend online classes at home. Even after entering the post-epidemic era, due to the inertia and advantages of online learning at home, the proportion of theoretical lessons remaining in online teaching is predicted to be around 30%. And the proportion of theoretical lessons in online teaching will continue to increase exponentially. This has already become a foreseeable trend. 5. The limited number of practical training courses and the simultaneous online and offline rotation of teaching are a useful exploration. During the epidemic, we divided the training courses into several groups and limited the number of people in each group to 5 to 7, and concluded that online and offline simultaneous teaching, for example, in the first class, the first group of students participated in face-to-face training in the classroom, while the second and third group took the online classes at home. In the second class, the second group of students participated in face-to-face training in the classroom for practical training, first reviewing the practical operation of the first class, and then learning the practical operation. The third groups and the first group studied online at home. In the third class, the third group of students participated in the classroom face-to-face instruction for practical training, reviewing the first and second practical training operations first, and then learning the practical operation. The first and second groups learned online at home. In this cycle of learning, each student had face-to-face instruction opportunities for practical operations and kept a safe distance for purposes of epidemic prevention. The limited number of practical training courses and simultaneously online and offline lectures in rotating groups are not only useful explorations during the pandemic, but for those who have to travel long distances, such as 100 kilometers, to travel with each round trip taking 2 to 3 hours or more, if the later stages of the epidemic and the post-epidemic era, this medium will still be a useful choice. 6. Online sharing of high-quality courses can save cost and is also the direction of future development. For example, our college's branded courses for the Tuina major, Dr. Wu's head massage, and for the acupuncture major, advanced acupuncture techniques, for the Qigong major, medical Qigong and basic Chinese medicine courses when teaching, Toronto City Branch School and Markham City Branch School participating at the same time as students can save teaching costs and facilitate the promotion and dissemination of high-quality courses. Many colleges and universities are projected to share high-quality courses in online middle schools, which will become one of the trends and directions in the later stages of the epidemic and future development of international Chinese medicine education. 7. It will become the norm for online TCM conferences to break through the barriers of locale and time zone. Before the epidemic, the International TCM Conference was a face-to-face communication. Due to various factors such as the region, time, visa of each country, and desired result of international sharing was difficult to achieve. During the epidemic, in order to promote epidemic prevention, the International TCM Conference was changed to an online format, thus breaking through barriers associated with region and time zone, and eliminating the trouble of visa uncertainty. For example, from August 29th to 30th, 2020, our college and Yunnan University of TCM Continuing Education Conference held the 2020 Canadian Acupuncture and TCM Continuing Education Conference, and used the time difference between Canada and China to create a 24-hour-a-day new conference model, in which the main venues in the Eastern and Western hemispheres take turn to hosts. In the foreseeable future, in the late and post-epidemic eras, it will become the norm for the online and offline international TCM conference, and it will also be the trend and direction of future development. Part 8. The renewal of the heavy equipment of TCM clinical and teaching equipment is the trend of future development. Compared with Western medicine, TCM is simpler in both clinical and teaching equipment and lacks heavy equipment updates. Western medicine's heavy equipment such as X-ray, color, Doppler, ultrasound, CT, MRI, and so on make patients feel more intuitive and objective than TCM's observation, smell, inquiry, and touch. They also seem to be taller, larger, and more advanced. Modernization is not the sole patent of Western medicine, and TCM should actively use modern techniques such as when possible. The ancients said workers must first sharpen their tools if they want to do their jobs well. Fortunately, in recent years, a multitude of clinical and teaching equipment has been developed in combination with multiple disciplines, such as the English-Chinese bilingual materials used in clinical teaching, purchased by our college 3D TCM Meridian and Acupoint Anatomy platform, English and Chinese bilingual TCM pulse apparatus, and TCM tongue surface apparatus. The renewal of TCM teaching equipment has armed TCM teaching even more powerful, and it will also change the outside world's perception of backward TCM technology and poor equipment. TCM clinical and teaching hardware updates are the trend and the only way for future development. Number 9, the involvement of finance and venture capital will catalyze the development of the international chains of TCM and acupuncture. With the development of overseas TCM and acupuncture today, we have the conditions to form an international chain of TCM and acupuncture clinics. This epidemic has made TCM a global topic and will develop rapidly if finance and venture capital are involved. For nearly half a century, TCM and acupuncture have been developed in the form of individual professional households overseas. The investment threshold is low, and it's not easy to be valued by finance and venture capital. The key was that the industry had no legislation, and there was little room for the development. Nearly 10 years has passed, and the right time has formed. The geographical advantage for such a project should be in countries like Canada, the United States, and Australia, who have partial insurance coverage. Financial and venture capital will inject the industry with vitality, and talented management groups will integrate scattered but reputable clinics. It will form a chained and listed industry, and it is expected to be established in 5 to 8 years and take shape in 10 to 15 years. After the pandemic has passed, as national policy favors TCM and acupuncture, it's expected to accelerate the development of the international chain of TCM and acupuncture. Conclusion. In the last century, Nixon's visit to China in 1972 was the first climax of Chinese medicine going abroad. Nearly half a century has passed. 67 countries have recognized the legal status of TCM and acupuncture, and 183 countries in the world are applying TCM and acupuncture. The outbreak of the epidemic in 2020 will show the clinical superiority of TCM to the people of the world. The later period of the epidemic and post-epidemic era will be the second climax of TCM going to the world. In this century, let us, TCM practitioners, at home and abroad, unite and seize the opportunity given by history to heighten TCM's prestige around the world. Thank you for watching.